Welcome everyone to our episode 127. I have an honor guest today, Melinda Mulcahy, and we are going to talk about curiosity, about a lot of things that are going to be discussed today, about how can we bring back that curious mind. So the title for our discussion is Be Curious to Boost Your Cognition because we need to be curious in order to learn something. Thank you, Melinda, for being here. And I'm going to introduce you. Melinda Mulcahy stands as a pioneering figure in the newly developing field of curiosity, counted among a select few speakers globally, carving a niche in curiosity's intersection in three main areas: wellness, inclusion, and innovation. Her advisory role in the World Ethics Organization and as an ambassador for Wales underscores her commitment to pioneering this cutting-edge field that led to founding the World Curiosity Organization. Melinda's expertise has been sought after globally, with frequent appearances on podcasts and various prestigious platforms, ranking 16 most followed world speaker on the Real Success Network. So, as you can see, we have a really blessed guest, let's say, and we are going to speak about a topic that we really need right now. So, thank you, Melinda. And my first question is regarding how did you begin your journey in this realm of curiosity? How did you arrive to use curiosity as a healing tool?
Great question. And I just want to say thank you so much for having me. And you did really, really well in pronouncing my name. So well done, because most
Oh,
people can't pronounce
yeah,
my name.
thank you. I was afraid of that.
Well done. So, okay. I initially found myself in a very difficult situation where I was dealing with a lot of stress. We were moving house, we were under time restraint. We had just built a holiday house, and the builder then burnt it down because the agent took off with the cash that we paid her to pay the builder. So we were under quite a lot of stress, sort of coming from all different directions. And at that time, I also had a business that was fledgling, and it was a jewelry business. It was an international jewelry business, in fact. And I had been working on in that business for over 13 years. But I just got to a point where I just didn't know what to do anymore. I was just so burnt out and stressed. So I took myself off to the doctor. And in the 10 minutes that the NHS doctors have to diagnose what is essentially a lifetime of complexity, because stress that leads to various things is essentially undealt with complexity within your life. And what happened was the doctor then prescribed me the one pill fits all antidepressant. I left none the wiser and thought to myself, I don't want to take the antidepressants. What else can I do? So I thought to myself, right, what have I got? What is this? Because I realized it wasn't depression, but because I'd had various different types of depression throughout my life, including postnatal depression. But what was really interesting is that my brain was not functioning in a way that it should. I was struggling to punch through, to speak, let alone articulate in the words in my head, which to me presented like Alzheimer's, which was pretty frightening. And I got to a point where I couldn't even string sentences together. So I started looking into what I had and realized I had brain fog. So I diagnosed myself. And the next question was, okay, if I've got brain fog, how can I improve that? How can I improve my situation? And just
Mhm.
remember that question, because I'll come back to it.
Okay.
Uh, I then started looking into various different types of things like neuroscience, epigenetics, and all this sort of information started flowing to me. So I started writing a lot about it. I realized that I had monkey brain. I couldn't meditate to save my life. It's really difficult when you have monkey brain to meditate, to be mindful. And that actually made me feel worse, that I couldn't do something as simple as stop my brain from chattering. And
Mhm.
then I realized why it was chattering so much. So I had to deal with all of these things. Rather than just go straight into meditation, I used my curiosity to calm my monkeys, to be able to take control of my thoughts. I was constantly questioning, and that curiosity actually quietened my monkeys. So that was the first thing. I didn't realize it was curiosity at the time. I went about going into sort of understanding more about me, consciousness. I then became fairly in what you would call enlightened. I was understanding the whole process of consciousness. And then I had a divine storm. And the divine storm, I believe, is when the universe tests you. Um, and it was a difficult time. I was diagnosed with cancer. I had my parents, I had to speak to my mum and my dad in particular, about my mum's mental health. She was presenting with Alzheimer's quite considerably, and he was in denial about it. We lost my mother-in-law. So there were a set of circumstances, and also my marriage was going down the tubes as well. And in that time, I then had to have a massive operation, which meant that I was forced into menopause. So with cervical cancer, they took everything out, including my ovaries, and of course the downfall of menopause hit. And up until that time, I hadn't had any symptoms of menopause whatsoever, and it was brutal. It was nothing short of hell. And I can only say to you that out of all of the list of symptoms that you get from menopause, I had them all and more. Um, I was under so much emotional downfall. I even ruptured my Achilles tendon, because your Achilles is actually is or the left leg is associated with emotions. So it was a
Mm.
very, very difficult time for me. The worst was the anxiety that ended up spiraling into panic disorder, which is anxiety on steroids, where you have these panic moments. It was so regular; it was a couple of times in an hour, and when you speak to a neuroscientist, they kind of say to you, "Oh, well, they only last for a couple of minutes." Well, you try saying that when you're having two or three or four of them, and you're trying to get the washing done, or you're trying to get the shopping done in the local shops, or you're trying to get work done and things like that. It was just horrific. And it also affected my brain, the performance of my brain. I felt like I was actually walking through a sandstorm. And I also went to a quantum healer, and he kind of said to me, wow, he said, that's really, because he went into my mind, and he said it was pretty brutal. And yeah, that was how I would describe it. Constantly walking through a sandstorm. It was like as if he described it as you're not in this time, which is very bizarre. I wasn't in this time frame. I was just hanging on. So that
Mm.
was really difficult. My friend said to me, my goodness, how on earth did you cope? And I said, I don't know. I was just curious. So every time something would happen, I would go, okay, what have I got? How can I deal with it? What have I got? How can I improve it? And I thought to myself, wow, when I had the cancer diagnosis, it's really difficult um, to be grateful in that moment. When people sort of say to you, oh, well, you can always find gratitude. Well, it's pretty difficult when you have a cancer diagnosis. But what I found really profound, this is a really profound moment, when I realized that curiosity is not contingent upon anything. It
Mm.
just comes naturally. And every other mechanism that we praise whether it's happiness, whether it's gratitude, whether it's mindfulness, is always contingent upon something. But
Mhm.
your curiosity is always there. It's the most effective mechanism within the human design at being able to deal with problems. It is your greatest problem-solving mechanism. So when I realized it was my curiosity, I thought, well, wow, this is really interesting. Why isn't anybody talking about it? Why isn't anybody studying it at that point in time? This is going back 6, 7 years ago. I couldn't find anyone studying it. And I thought, well, this was the answer for me. Yes, mindfulness can help, but it can't help when your mind is out of control. It's near on impossible. And so I realized that it was actually curiosity all the time. It was my one constant that enabled me to get through all my situation. So I really started to study it quite extensively. I looked for absolutely every single bit of evidence that I could, every question that I had, I was looking for curiosity. And what was really interesting is that quite a lot of scientific publications cite curiosity as always being there. And so you have these publications, these peer-reviewed scientific publications that specifically mentioned that curiosity is always there. But that's it. It never gets any more attention. And I thought to myself, wow, this is crazy that nobody's seeing this. Why isn't anybody seeing this? So I really looked into it. I started looking into my process. I then measured that up against the science that I was also looking at. And I've dedicated in excess of, well, in total, 12 years of studying the human condition, the human design, our evolutionary design, that is, and then a further sort of 5, 6 years really specifically honing in on curiosity.
Mm. Wow. That's a lot of information and a lot of layers that you
Mm.
have. And as you mentioned, I love the way that you narrated each of the stages because in each one of them, it's a different set of circumstances that deals or makes you deal with a different health problem or
Mm.
a different emotional problem, of course, because also when you are faced with a diagnosis of cancer, of course that the first thought in your mind is what is going to happen, because we know and we associate that word with usually with death and
Yeah.
with the worst outcome. So it's also grief that combines to in the adding of circumstances. And I was amazed how you never stop being curious and you always trusted in that intuition. And as you mentioned, and I also have read and I was piqued so much with curiosity when we were in the chat session that I wrote an article about curiosity, and I also could verify that it is always there, but
Yeah.
we don't know how to use it. We don't know how to really explore all of the connections that it has in order to
Mm.
make us heal and to really assemble a puzzle of our lives, because everything that I can think of has been discovered due to curiosity, because
Yeah. Yeah.
science, if inventors, if geniuses hadn't been curious,
Yeah.
we didn't have anything. That's
Correct.
that's it.
Correct. Yeah.
End of society, and that's
Yeah.
it.
It's at the basis of science. It's at the basis of discovery. It's also at the basis of our survival, because you cannot have survival without adaptation and growth. And that starts with learning. What is this? So understanding what's going on is the very first step, and then realizing that we can learn as we progress. And what's really interesting, in fact, I saw an SAS speaker. Do you know what the SAS is? A military group in the UK. And so I think they're equivalent to the Navy SEALs or something like that in America, or something like that. Anyway, this guy was talking about how the SAS specifically, at every single event that happens, they always go back and pull it apart and see where they went wrong or see where they could do better for next time. And that is what I teach, using curiosity, because that's what curiosity is. It's about understanding, okay, if this happened, then how can we learn from it? How can I do better so that I'm improving for the future? So what's really interesting about that process is that you're no longer just becoming resilient. Now, resilience is a byproduct of curiosity, but it's also the highest on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you know anything about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But what's interesting about resilience, which is essentially when you when you self-actualize, the self-actualization is profound awareness. Okay, but I believe that there's one more, and that is transcendence. So you have actualization, awareness. Transcendence is the ability to actually welcome situations, to welcome challenges. And that is, I believe, where we ought to be striving.
Beautiful. Yes, beautiful reflection about how we really can pass that limit that is imposed many times by society, because it doesn't allow us to actually, what I think now is that many of the things that are designed in society, education systems, also the workplaces, are designed to hinder or to shut down curiosity. So don't ask questions. This is the answer. Just trust in this, and you sort of, well, many people sort of are being molded into this kind of just, let's say that, non-thinker.
Just unquestioning. Do you know, there was a study done about the questions that kids asked before they went into school, during school, and then the questions that they asked after school or when they came out of school. And the number one question that students asked when they left school: how can I keep out of trouble? Now, that is a very, very sad indictment of our education system, because that will only cause more trouble.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're just triggering the brain, you're commanding the brain. So what I also talk about, I teach, is the language center, because that's really, really important, understanding that you're using the right language. And we are continually commanding our brain and our minds and our bodies all of the time. Even big motivational speakers, those kind of people that get on stage, and even when they use the word unlimited, that is a command to the brain that you are limited. Because the brain sees limited first before it recognizes unlimited. Does that make sense? Because that's how the brain works. So it's about really breaking down even the language. And by the way, curiosity is part of our language center. It's triggered in the amygdala. I couldn't say that. So what's really, really important is understanding. And you asked about how we don't know how to use curiosity, and you are absolutely spot on. And the reason why is because it's an assumed process. It's an assumed concept. But what I teach is, what is curiosity? Because it actually took me in excess of 5 years to work out what it actually is. And in that time, I identified in excess of 70 benefits. Now, to give you some idea of perspective, happiness, according to Harvard Science, only has 9 benefits. So curiosity is really quite an impressive mechanism that needs to be utilized. I also teach not only what it is, the benefits of it, but how it works. And that is critical so that you can capitalize on it. Once you realize how it works, once you realize how simple it is, but what you're actually doing is you are commanding your evolutionary system to start working for you as opposed to against you, because we've been using our evolutionary design against ourselves. And so that is the biggest problem with our society, our teachings at the moment. And what's really, really key to it all is that curiosity offers a number of other benefits, including reducing stress. So when you are in curiosity, you have to have an intention with that, but you can significantly reduce your stress. So you know that concept of feel the fear and do it anyway? Have you heard that?
Yeah.
You don't have to feel the fear and do it anyway with curiosity. You can just be curious. It downregulates your stress hormones. It gives you a hit of dopamine, so it moves you forward towards the goals you seek, allowing you to take effective action. And in addition to that, that's my dog. And in addition to that, it opens your reticular activating system. That's the part of the brain, your filtering system, that enables you to see opportunities, to see what it is that you're looking for much, much faster. So it opens up your brain, and you then have the hit of dopamine, giving you the impetus to take effective action. Now, there is no other system in the human design that can do that or come anywhere close to it.
Mm.
Yeah. Does that make sense? Does it have?
I
know that I've given you a whole heap of information there.
Yeah. No, but it makes a lot of sense. And the article that I wrote about curiosity has an image of the brain and the regions of the brain that are being triggered or primed or boosted by curiosity, and pretty much every single region that is important to solve problems, to, as you mentioned, to look for new adventures, new endeavors, what all of those things, new projects are being enlightened. And the most, for me, the most amazing thing that curiosity makes in this diagram of regions is that it loops back into a circle and consolidates the memory of things.
Yep.
So we remember more things.
Yep.
Because we were curious about those certain things, and because we ask questions. And
So it was a guy called Professor Matthias Gruber, who is now based in Cardiff University in South Wales. He determined that it's actually quite an interesting story. When he was at university and he was studying psychology, his professor point blank said curiosity is not involved in the learning system. And he went out and proved him wrong, because curiosity must be there to be able to learn. So he proved that curiosity was, in fact, required to learn, and that you learn more effectively, you retain more information. In other words, yes, as you mentioned, you're building memory, and it must come from curiosity. So that is one of the benefits of curiosity. Yeah. And of course, when you take this that little bit further, what this actually means in terms of health is really quite staggering. There's a couple of areas involved. Neurological health. So for instance, you actually are improving your neurological brain, the physical health of your brain, so that there are now studies proving that curiosity can reduce dementia-related diseases, which is pretty important now, because in the UK, fairly recently, the government announced that dementia-related diseases is the number one killer, with the exception of stress, because of course stress also causes dementia-related diseases, but that is the number one killer now in the UK, which is really, really interesting. So curiosity can reduce dementia-related diseases. It improves your cognitive functioning. So not just the physical brain, but also how you think. Once you start utilizing curiosity more effectively, you will realize that your cognitive process, it's known as metacognition, is significantly improved.
Yeah.
And as a result of those two elements, you also have physical health improvements. Things like reducing stress obviously affects your heart, and think it can also reduce risks of stroke. So there are numerous physiological benefits as well to becoming more curious and using curiosity as it was intended. This is one of the earliest mechanisms that we have that enables us to deal with problems.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if we think about the evolution of our species, we were just set in the forest or in the desert or wherever it was the first humans there, and we had to find ways to make first to eat, then find ways to make fire, then make think of ways to have a shelter, to have kind of clothing to protect us from the weather. All of those things require curiosity, and if we didn't have that kind of thinking, we were not here. That's just a very straight answer to that. And you were mentioning that also when we are curious, we are happier. And I agree really a lot with that sentence, because it is also the mesolimbic brain, or the brain that is emotional brain, that has also this emotion, motivation, and behaviors that is activated when we are curious. So that's for me is extremely important. And I was thinking in my next question is, how in your life did you enjoy, or did you use this curiosity to allow yourself to be happier? Going back to the story and to all the layers that you narrated, when you were dealing with those circumstances, how did curiosity allow you to really look at the silver lining, even when you had a diagnosis of cancer?
Well, it's interesting you use the word silver lining, and a lot of people do. That's not something that came into my mind at that particular time, because I think, again, silver linings, you can only really kind of, when you have a diagnosis like that, you can only really consider silver linings after the event. So I think probably that's not where my mind was at the time. But what I would say is that, and this, I'll go into the process of happiness, so I'll make it perfectly clear. At any given moment, the brain is constantly rationalizing, right? It's constantly rationalizing risk over reward, and even the fact that we say it that way suggests where our focus is. We say risk before we say reward, and yet our evolutionary design is almost, I like to just make it really simple for people. You either you're in stress and survival mode, or you're in restoration, happiness, and those sorts of very positive emotions. Okay. So when you're in the positive emotions, then your brain is working more effectively. What happens in any given situation, it doesn't matter what situation it is, whether you're trying to determine you're happy or whether you are struggling with your current situation, it does not matter. This one caveat is what your decisions are dependent upon. Your brain rationalizing that risk over reward, good, bad, right, wrong, I want, I don't want, right?
Yeah.
And based on how you rationalize that, which is based on quite a lot of old information, then that determines the decisions that you make, that then forms your actions as a result, and even to a degree your emotions. Okay, so what I'm saying here is that I recognized that by simply rationalizing, using the concept of what I wanted, what did I want as a result? What was my goal? What was my intention? And so this is one of the parts of making a really, really effective question. You must have an intention. And so my focus wasn't so much on it wasn't so much on reward, it wasn't so much on survival. I just wanted to do the very best I could at that particular moment, which is positive. Yeah.
Mhm.
And by doing that, I then triggered my systems to start working for me. And as a result, my brain was able to work more effectively.
Mhm.
So I kept my stress levels down. I didn't feel any stress. I didn't actually cry as a result of my diagnosis. I don't think I did. If I did, it was literally fleeting. I don't think I even lost much sleep because I rationalized in my brain what I needed to do to move forward. And even if it was just moving forward in little steps, it didn't matter. It was just, okay, this is my goal. My goal is obviously positive health. And that's the key. What's interesting is that the brain in those circumstances very often will say, how did I get this? I don't want this. I don't deserve this. I'm going to die. And unfortunately, we are just programming our brain to that effect. We are commanding our brain all the time. And so the brain is going to look for anything to do with keeping out of trouble, and all those sorts of things. So it's really, really important that we understand that language plays a massive part, but we must include an intention with that.
Mhm.
Yeah. So hopefully that gives you a little bit more of insight into how curiosity worked for me.
No, I mean, it answered, of course, the question of how you were just going step by step, allowing curiosity to open more doors into the next step, and you didn't pressure yourself with anxiety or with this fear that shut down curiosity. Because if you would have been in that program mindset that usually many people are, they, as you mentioned, they start seeing the scenarios, tragic scenarios, and they just program the brain towards those scenarios. And instead of that, you were just thinking about, well, I have this disease. Now, what's the next step? What can I do to improve this? Let's say that you have certain pain and you just thought about that pain and that's it,
Yeah.
not anything else. And I think that's the process of healing, because we allow our bodies also to have time to repair, to have this intuition and this direction of, well, we just need to deal with this issue right now, which is the pain.
Yeah.
That's it. We don't think about the consequences of anything.
Yeah, and you know what as well? I mean, you mentioned let's just look at stress. First of all, I was able to put my body immediately into, and I activated it in a way that was working for me. So it wasn't feeding the cancer. Okay. So obviously, if you go into stress, you're feeding your cancer, because you're actually taking away the body's energy system that can restore you. But the other really interesting thing is, when you look at stress, it is actually a fear of a lack of control. And curiosity gives you control. It actually makes you feel in control just by asking one question. How can I improve this? Gives you immediate control. You feel it in your body. And so that's what I'm saying. It takes away all the stress. So it just made life so much easier for me, that I could actually deal with the situation at hand. And then you were talking about intuition. Now, this is a really interesting thing, intuition, that came as a result of my curiosity. And that is, my intuition significantly increased by curiosity. And I diagnosed myself. That was something that I forgot to tell in my story. I actually told because I realized that my intuition was extremely heightened by that stage. And I actually went to the doctor and said, you need to test here. So I knew that I had cancer, and I knew exactly where it was. And what I realize now is that intuition is also triggered through curiosity. And there are three parts to intuition. There is the intention, so positive intention, can't remember the other one, and curiosity. I think it's mostly positive intention. And then just kind of asking questions, like, particularly, how am I feeling? And just being aware. So there's awareness that's involved, but awareness starts through curiosity. So essentially, all intuition starts with curiosity and an intention.
Yeah. And one thing that you are mentioning here is that awareness of your body, of the connection with your body, and feeling or tracing your body, scanning your body. That let's say that feature, or that skill, or that ability that we have, is called interoception. So when you feel your body, and when you really can trace where are you having those, any kind of pain or any kind of ailment, you are really connecting with that energy of your body. And if we think of curiosity as, let's say, as a playful light that goes into your body and starts playing and searching for things that are not okay, that's what you did. I was just picturing a small light that is just scanning the body and seeing where it is. And it is amazing how you were so connected with your body that you could detect and you could tell the physician, well, just check this, or send me this test so that I can see what is
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah. Actually, I didn't even it wasn't even as technical as doing a scan. I just knew. I mean, there are lots of different types of intuition. I realized I have quite a number of different types of intuition. Um, uh, and you can name it however you like. But for me, that on that particular occasion, it was just a voice that came into my head that constantly was like, cancer, 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 and then just a knowing of where it was. So I didn't even have to scan my body. It wasn't even, but I will say this: when I had the brain fog, I mentally visualize like water pushing through my brain and cleaning it out. And that significantly improved my brain fog. So, and I would get to sort of areas where the water would stop, and it would go like a hammer because it was blocked.
Mm.
And I realized that I did that intuitively. I didn't even know what I was doing. I just did it. And I've been told by quite a few people, like, survivors of strokes and things like that, that they've done the same.
Hmm.
So it just happens, but it really is. It does start with curiosity. I know that from my own experience.
Yeah. I mean, in spite of the name of the property of intuition,
Mm.
you have that sensing of
Mm.
you having something that was more that was not in check with health. And as you mentioned, not feeding fear into yourselves, into these processes of health, allowed you to give the body trust and to give the body this kind of healing power of
Yep.
to overcome cancer. So that's extremely important because that's what we also should be doing, trusting more in ourselves.
Yeah.
And how do
Yeah.
you use curiosity to allow you to trust more in yourself rather than the outside world?
Um, it just comes naturally because look, you only need to look at every single high achiever throughout history to date, whether it was Aristotle or whether it was Galileo, whether it was Marie Curie, or whether it was Einstein. They were all extremely curious. Uh, Michelangelo, again, a very curious person. It's a natural mechanism within our human design. We just have not been taught that it's okay to use it. And that's the travesty of it. Because here's the thing, when we're children, curiosity is very much at play. And that's how we learn so rapidly. Curiosity is there in wonderment. You know, when kids are like, they see something new, they're looking at it, they're picking up. That's curiosity at play. You
Yeah,
know, there's that, and so what's going on then is that's feeding the brain very, very quickly, and that's how kids learn so fast. And they learn an exceptional amount of information in over a very, very short period of time. And then when they go to school, they're told not to be curious. And the reason why, and I can totally understand it, because they have to get people through the education system. I get it. But we've got to a point now where we're letting down our students. We're letting down the students. We're letting down the people who have neurodiversity. I'm a neurodiversity advocate because I'm neurally diverse myself. And the education system is not supporting everybody as it should.
mm,
So unless you're if you're an atypical learner, fine. But there's a lot of people that aren't. And you only need to look at the prison system to realize just how fundamental that flaw is. Because certainly in the UK prison system, in excess of I think 55% of inmates have dyslexia, for instance. And
mm,
that doesn't even take into consideration people who have ADHD and so forth. So we're really letting down a huge proportion of students, which is terrific. And so what's really interesting about curiosity when you use it, and I use it all the time now. I mean, and this is the thing, I teach people to be consciously curious, not just curious, to be consciously curious. And the reason why is because you're then in wonderment all the time. You're in discovery and exploration all the time. So your mind is constantly exploring.
mm.
And it's just a wonderful state of play to be in, which is what kids were. Wonderment, exploration, discovery, those wonderful concepts that, again, a lot of adults forget.
Yeah,
And so when we move into that way of thinking, we can then start to innovate. We can start to think of new concepts. We can start to piece together bits of information that we may have overseen in the past. So
yeah.
yeah.
As you're mentioning all of those things, I think that I felt just mirrored because I am a very curious person and I like to explore different ways of thinking. That's why I was not comfortable with a corporate job. And at some point I said, this is not for me. I'm just being wasted here. I need to do more things. And my mind was feeling it is just really funny because now I'm remembering how I felt when I decided to go out from for corporate world, and I could relate to your ailment of having this brain fog. I felt that my brain was stuck and I didn't have energy, and I just had to go and arrive to my place and turn on the TV and distract myself. So I said, this is not me. That's when one day I said, I don't know what is happening, but this is not me. I don't want this life for me. And that's when I decided in 1 year, I'm going to get out from this corporate, and that's it. I had a date, and that.
And good for you. And I think the thing is, if you actually look at all of the stories of survive to thrive stories, every single one of those started with curiosity. Every single one of those went through the process to get where they did because of their curiosity. So it's extremely powerful. And my job is to really just make people more conscious of it and to start leading with it. Because when we do, as I say, we improve everything. We improve. There's so many amazing benefits as a result of it. I mean, gosh, as I say, in excess of 70 benefits so far that I've found, That's
Yeah.
so impressive.
And to wrap things around, how could you say that we can help as parents and just as individuals to other people to allow them to use this curiosity to learn better? What can we do in the education system or in a corporate world to make things easier to spark curiosity?
Well, it really doesn't take much. That's the whole point. So, with your kids, it's really, I mean, I have two kids myself, and I know at times as a parent, you can be very, very tired. But you need to at least show your children that you are curious about them and try and encourage curiosity as much as possible. So there's two concepts there. When you show interest in somebody, when you show you're curious about somebody, then you're building trust. You're connecting more effectively. 3-time TED talker Esther Perel talks about curiosity all the time.
Mm.
It is your number one connection mechanism. So if you're in a difficult situation, why not use curiosity to improve it, to connect with somebody more effectively? So rather than sort of, completely ignore something, like if you've got a really angry teenager, ask, I'm really curious. And it's really, really powerful when you use the word I'm curious. So particularly if you're in a challenging situation, it can really deflate the situation very quickly, which is good. So two words, I'm curious, and it gets them to kind of go, okay, so they're already, they've got your attention now. And then, ask, I'm curious about you. And when you're showing your curiosity to learn about them, what's going on? How can I help you? Those sorts of questions, because it's focused on them. It's not focused on you. So curiosity is, you can focus outward. And I'll talk about inward curiosity in a moment. But when you're focusing outward, you're really building trust with that person. Number one, you're building a more authentic connection with them. And it feels really good. It does. It feels really good. And you can start to feel the energy flowing between the two of you much more freely. Now, that is just a couple of very, very simple questions that you can ask people that makes a hell of a difference, whether it's in a corporate environment or whether it's in, with your children, as regards to, trying to get your kids more curious. You don't need to do that. They do that naturally.
Yeah.
But certainly what parents very often do is kind of brush aside or stop asking me questions, or, when they should be encouraging or at least allowing those questions to flow and not feel bad about it. Because, when we get out of school and we go into a job, we got to stand on our own 2 feet. And we do that with curiosity, right? We have
Mm.
to ask questions with curiosity when we're adults, like when we're buying a house, when we're buying a car, when we're getting a job. Those sorts of things must require curiosity. Otherwise, you end up in the wrong job with the wrong house, the wrong partner, or whatever it is. So, and then there's intrapersonal curiosity. And this is one thing that's really lacking. Intrapersonal curiosity is curiosity about yourself. As you kind of said, not just your physical process of how you might feel energetically or what have you. Um, it's everything. It involves everything. So, for instance, even when it comes to food, I actually lost 5 dress sizes using curiosity, believe it or not. And I'm working with a very well-known Harley Street. Harley Street is a well-known road in the UK where all the top surgeons and consultants work. And this Harley Street consultant is a dietitian, and she loves this concept because without curiosity, you're not going to improve your health at all.
Yeah.
What I did naturally. I started looking because the whole process was, okay, I want to get healthier. I want to be healthier. So positive intention. But the other thing that I was trying to do when I was dealing with the menopause situation was reduce my anxiety. And to do that, which by the way, sugars feed anxiety. So if you are anxious, really look at your sugar intake and get rid of it. And so what I did is I monitored myself using curiosity. Okay, every time something went in my mouth, how did I feel? I don't know, an hour before, an hour after, 2 hours after, 4 hours after. And not just how did I feel, like how did it feel in my body? Did it feel heavy in my stomach?
Mhm.
And but also, what was my brain function like 2 hours, 4 hours before? So I know that sugar seriously impedes my metacognition, my ability to think fast. And that, I don't know whether that's a scarring from the brain fog. It wouldn't surprise me if it was.
Yeah.
But that's just one of the things I now contend with. And so brain health is extremely important to me, making sure that I am at optimal levels with my brain functioning. And to do that, it always starts with not just the food that you're eating. So another area that I look at specifically is, okay, how is my thoughts functioning? Now, what's really interesting is that not many people who deal with or talk about burnout talk about how your thoughts are acting. And
Mm.
what I mean by that is that I know when I'm close to burnout, or I'm needing to take some kind of action, is that I'm very aware that my thoughts are bouncing.
Yeah.
Now, you're going to get more of that because of how we're so distracted now. So the kids being so distracted are literally training their brain to bounce from one thing to another, and it is very unhealthy, very unhealthy. And what's really, really interesting is that I know that when I'm in serious, like close to burnout, I know it's because my brain's flitting from one thing to another. So I have to actually bring it into, right, focus, one thing at a time, take things one thing at a time. But that all starts with curiosity, all of it.
Yeah. And I love the way that you explain also the interrelationship with people and curiosity and that that way of asking questions. I am curious, as you mentioned. If you say that, no one is going to take personally the things that you are saying or
I
the
know.
question, even though you can be asking a difficult question or
Yeah.
a,
Yeah.
if you say, I am curious why you are anything,
Yeah.
angry or depressed, whatever. So it's amazing. Thank you for that recommendation because I think it's gonna help a lot of people to ask the question like that.
Yeah,
And,
definitely.
and also when you talk with someone and you are curious about the other person, the journey, the how they grow up or what they like, what they don't like, whatever, you really make that person feel valued and important, and you strengthen a relationship in spite of being a stranger in the street. If you just ask one question because out of curiosity and you are interested in that person, you really can enlighten their day just by doing that question. No.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so easy and yet it's so overlooked.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
it's it's quite incredible, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Melinda, for this amazing talk. And just to summarize all of this that we have discussed, how can you just tell me in one sentence what is now curiosity for you?
Okay, so the definition in the dictionary is uh oh God, my brain's gone.
Don't
Sorry,
worry,
go on, just
for you.
sorry, the desire or the want to know something, to explore something, um, to learn something. That's usually what the definition in any sort of dictionary is. But
Mhm,
I believe that there is more to it than that because curiosity is an interest, right? But it's an interest also in feeling something. You know,
mhm,
you have to have curiosity to be able to feel something. So that is a big driver. And I think that's something that is significantly missed. And I think if people were more conscious about feeling and what they're feeling, then I think things would significantly improve. But it can also be curiosity is involved with measurement, observation. So there's lots of things that curiosity is involved with. So I think that just to say it's involved with learning, knowing something, and an exploration is only half of it, really.
yeah, thank you. Thank you, Melinda, for an amazing talk, for sharing your journey with those details of everything that happened to you and how you solve it using curiosity. I think that this episode will help a lot of people to really start just recognizing that they all have this trait inside of them, and they just have to use it more so that they can make it easier to flow and to help them in in their own lives. You know?
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Anything that you want to add? Where can people find your work and everything that you're doing?
So for corporations, I've set up the World Curiosity Organization, and that's because I'm helping to teach organizations the importance of curiosity to make sure that people's wellness is really part of the equation. It's not just base profits, because we won't have profits without people. And
Yeah,
we can
exactly.
significantly improve people's productivity by being more focused towards people's wellness. So what I teach in corporations is creating positive wellness within people and how they think that enables them to move forward very quickly. That then improves baseline profits. The other thing that I do is I teach. I have a course on the website curiousyou.com, and it's YOU, curious YOU. And that is for anybody who just wants an off-the-shelf system. That teaches the concept of using curiosity for stress management, and it is quite an extensive course. You only invest about 10 minutes to 15 minutes a day, but it really will give you a very, very good insight into how you could significantly improve. In fact, I personally believe it's the only thing that you need. Once you understand this concept and you use it, you capitalize on it, you are good to go. But the other thing I do for high achievers is also I do courses on curiosity for innovative thinking, because what's really interesting is even still a lot of people think that the innovation process is sort of very mystical, but actually I break it down into very simple concepts that make people realize anybody can innovate very, very quickly. You just have to have the right questions in mind. So again, it's all based on curiosity. And by the way, that course also significantly opens up all your intelligences, not just your creative intelligence, but also your intuition. So all your intelligences. There's quite a few different types, but they are all improved or increased using that course.
Thank you. Thank you, Melinda. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And as always, I encourage you to ask questions more now than ever in this episode, and suggestions, of course, for new topics or new guests. Thank you very much for being here, and we will listen to each other on our next episode. Thank you, Melinda. Bye.
Thanks so much.